From public displays of vengeance to quiet deaths shrouded in mystery, the final chapters of these tyrants' lives are as captivating as the reigns of terror that preceded them. Join us as we unearth the captivating and sometimes unsettling tales of how some of history's most notorious figures met their end.
Nicolae Ceausescu, the very name sends chills down the spines of many Romanians. Born in 1918 in Scornicesti, he rose to become Romania's communist dictator. His rule from 1965 to 1989 started with promise but ended in tyranny. Ceausescu's early life was marked by poverty and hardship. He joined the Romanian Communist Party young and was imprisoned several times. These experiences solidified his communist ideals. In prison, he met Gheorghe Gheorghiu Dej, his mentor and predecessor. After Băutu, Ceausescu climbed the party ranks. When Gheorghiu Dej died in 1965, Ceausescu seized control. Initially, his rule seemed a break from the past. He condemned the Warsaw Pact invasion of Czechoslovakia in 1968. This won him praise domestically and internationally. But soon his true nature revealed itself, leading to oppression. Romania would pay a heavy price. With each passing year, Ceausescu's grip on Romania tightened. He consolidated his power, eliminating rivals and centralizing control within the Communist Party. His secret police, the Securitate, became a ubiquitous and feared force, monitoring citizens and ruthlessly crushing any hint of dissent. Ceausescu's Romania was becoming a surveillance state, where fear and paranoia were the tools of control. Ceausescu's defiance of the Soviet Union continued to be a defining aspect of his foreign policy. He pursued independent economic policies, seeking to industrialize Romania and reduce its reliance on the Soviet Union. This independent stance won him admiration in the West, but it also made him a target of Soviet suspicion. The Kremlin watched Ceausescu closely, wary of his growing power and unpredictable nature. Ceausescu's domestic policies were becoming increasingly repressive. He introduced strict censorship laws, curtailing freedom of speech and assembly. The media was tightly controlled, transformed into a mouthpiece for the regime's propaganda. Ceausescu's cult of personality began to take shape, with his image plastered everywhere and his pronouncements treated as gospel. Romania was becoming a nation held hostage by the whims of a single man. In 1966, Ceausescu's obsession with control took a chilling turn with the introduction of Decree 770. This draconian law outlawed abortion and contraception, aiming to boost Romania's population and workforce. Women were subjected to forced gynecological examinations, their bodies treated as instruments of the state. The impact of Decree 770 was devastating. Thousands of women died from unsafe abortions, while countless others were forced to bear children they could not afford to raise. The decree created a generation of orphans and abandoned children, many of whom ended up in overcrowded and underfunded state institutions. Decree 770 stands as a stark reminder of the cruelty and inhumanity of Ceausescu's regime, a testament to his willingness to sacrifice individual lives at the altar of his own twisted vision. As Ceausescu's grip on Romania tightened, so too did his cult of personality. His image became omnipresent, adorning public buildings, schools, and even private homes. State-controlled media churned out endless streams of propaganda, portraying Ceausescu as a visionary leader, a benevolent father figure, and the savior of the Romanian people. Children were taught to sing his praises in school, while adults were expected to applaud his every utterance with feigned enthusiasm. Elaborate public spectacles were staged to celebrate Ceausescu and his wife, Elena, who had become a powerful figure in her own right. These events were carefully choreographed displays of mass adulation, designed to reinforce the image of a beloved leader adored by his people. The reality, of course, was far different. Behind the facade of adoration and loyalty lay a nation held captive by fear. While Ceausescu's propaganda machine painted a rosy picture of prosperity, the reality for most Romanians was one of hardship and deprivation. His grand economic schemes, often poorly conceived and implemented, led to chronic shortages of food, fuel, and basic necessities. Long lines became a daily ritual, as citizens queued for hours to purchase meager rations of bread, milk, and other essentials. The once vibrant Romanian economy sputtered and stalled, burdened by inefficiency, corruption, and Ceausescu's insistence on pursuing grandiose projects at the expense of basic needs. To repay foreign debt and finance his ambitious industrialization plans, Ceausescu imposed harsh austerity measures. Food rationing became commonplace, and electricity was strictly limited. Romania, once a land of promise, was descending into poverty and despair. By the late 1980s, discontent with Ceausescu's rule had reached a boiling point. The Romanian people, weary of oppression, poverty, and the constant surveillance of the Securitate, were ripe for rebellion. The spark that ignited the revolution came in December 1989 in the western city of Timisoara. Protests erupted in support of Laszlo Tokes, a Hungarian Reformed church pastor who had spoken out against the regime. Ceausescu, accustomed to ruling with an iron fist, ordered the protests crushed. Security forces opened fire on unarmed demonstrators, killing dozens and wounding hundreds more. The massacre at Timisoara shocked the nation, shattering the aura of invincibility that had long surrounded Ceausescu. News of the bloodshed spread rapidly, igniting protests in other cities and towns across Romania. The Romanian Revolution had begun. As protests raged across Romania, the walls were closing in on Nicolae and Elena Ceausescu. The Securitate, once the feared instrument of their repression, began to crumble as soldiers and officers defected to the side of the revolutionaries. On December 22, 1989, realizing their grip on power was slipping away, the Ceausescus fled Bucharest by helicopter. Their escape was short-lived. The helicopter was forced to land, and the Ceausescus were apprehended by the military and taken into custody. The once all-powerful dictator and his wife were now prisoners, their fate uncertain. The images of their capture, broadcast on Romanian television, sent shockwaves through the nation. The Ceausescu era was over. On Christmas Day 1989, Nicolae and Elena Ceausescu faced a hastily convened military tribunal. They were charged with genocide, undermining national economic power, and abuse of power for personal gain. The trial was swift and arguably unfair, lacking many of the basic tenets of due process. The Ceausescus, defiant to the end, denounced the proceedings as illegal and refused to recognize the court's authority. Despite the questionable legality of the trial, the outcome was never in doubt. The Ceausescus were found guilty and sentenced to death. Within hours of the verdict, they were executed by firing squad. The images of their bodies, lying lifeless on the cold concrete, were broadcast around the world, marking a dramatic end to their reign of terror. Nicolae Ceausescu's legacy is a complex and troubling one. He was a dictator who ruled with an iron fist, responsible for the deaths and suffering of countless Romanians. His economic policies were disastrous, plunging the nation into poverty and deprivation. His obsession with control extended to the most intimate aspects of people's lives, as evidenced by the horrors of Decree 770. Yet, Ceausescu's defiance of the Soviet Union and his pursuit of an independent foreign policy earned him a degree of admiration both domestically and internationally. He remains a controversial figure in Romanian history, his legacy debated and dissected to this day. A life of privilege and duty awaited him from the very beginning. These were the early years of Franz Ferdinand, a time that would shape his future. Born into the illustrious Habsburg dynasty, Franz Ferdinand was part of one of the oldest and most powerful royal families in Europe, a lineage that carried centuries of history and influence. His birthright came with immense wealth, privilege, and a predetermined path that few could imagine. As a young man, Franz Ferdinand received a rigorous education, steeped in the traditions and expectations of the Habsburg court. His studies were comprehensive, covering a wide range of subjects from politics to military strategy. He was meticulously groomed for a life of power and responsibility, with every aspect of his upbringing designed to prepare him for his future role. His early years were marked by a strong sense of duty and a deep love for his family, values that were instilled in him from a very young age. However, Franz Ferdinand's life took a dramatic turn in 1889 with the untimely death of his cousin, Crown Prince Rudolf, who was Emperor Franz Joseph's only son and the heir to the throne. This unexpected tragedy thrust Franz Ferdinand into the position of heir presumptive to the Austro-Hungarian throne, a role he had not anticipated. He was now next in line to rule over a vast and complex empire, a responsibility that came with its own set of challenges and expectations. The weight of this immense responsibility fell heavily on his shoulders, shaping his worldview, ambitions, and the decisions he would make in the years to come. The weight of the throne, Franz Ferdinand as heir apparent. His journey to becoming the heir was not just a change in title, but a transformation of his entire life. Becoming heir apparent changed Franz Ferdinand's life forever. It was a role that came with immense responsibility and expectations. He was thrust into the spotlight, his every move scrutinized by the court and the public. The pressure was immense and he had to navigate the complexities of royal life. He took his new role seriously, dedicating himself to understanding the intricacies of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. He spent countless hours studying documents and learning about the empire's vast territories. He traveled extensively throughout the empire, meeting with people from all walks of life. These journeys were not just ceremonial, they were opportunities for him to connect with his future subjects. Franz Ferdinand was a complex and often contradictory figure. He could be both charming and aloof, compassionate and stern. He was known for his strong will and his unwavering belief in the Habsburg dynasty. His dedication to his family and their legacy was evident in everything he did. He was also a devout Catholic and a staunch conservative. His faith played a significant role in his life and influenced many of his decisions, yet he was not afraid to challenge the status quo. He often found himself at odds with the traditionalists at court. He recognized the need for reform within the Austro-Hungarian Empire. He believed that change was essential for the empire's survival and prosperity. He believed that the empire needed to modernize in order to survive. His vision for the future was one of progress and adaptation, ensuring that the Austro-Hungarian Empire could thrive in a rapidly changing world. Franz Ferdinand's relationship with his uncle, Emperor Franz Joseph, was complex and often strained. The old emperor, a symbol of stability and tradition, viewed his nephew's reformist ideas with suspicion. He saw Franz Ferdinand as impulsive and reckless. Their differences in temperament and political views created a rift between them. Despite their differences, Franz Ferdinand respected his uncle and understood the burden he carried. He knew that any attempt to implement radical changes would be met with resistance from the emperor and the old guard. Yet, he remained convinced that the empire needed to adapt to the changing times. He believed that only through reform could the Austro-Hungarian Empire survive and thrive in the 20th century. In June 1914, Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie, Duchess of Hohenberg, embarked on a fateful journey to Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia and Herzegovina. They were filled with a sense of duty and anticipation, unaware of the tragic events that would soon unfold. The Austro-Hungarian Empire had annexed Bosnia and Herzegovina in 1908, a move that angered Serbia and heightened tensions in the Balkans. This annexation was a significant geopolitical maneuver that disrupted the fragile balance of power in the region. The Archduke's visit was intended to be a show of strength and unity. It was meant to demonstrate the empire's control and to reassure the local population of their place within the Austro-Hungarian realm. The couple arrived in Sarajevo on June 28, 1914, St. Vitus's Day, a significant date for Serbs. The streets were lined with onlookers, some curious, others resentful. The date marked the anniversary of the Battle of Kosovo in 1389, a Serbian defeat that led to centuries of Ottoman rule. This historical context added a layer of tension to the Archduke's visit. The choice of this date for the Archduke's visit was seen as a deliberate provocation by many Serbs. It was a reminder of past grievances and a symbol of ongoing oppression, making the atmosphere in Sarajevo even more volatile. The Archduke's visit to Sarajevo had not gone unnoticed by those who opposed Habsburg rule. A Serbian nationalist terrorist group known as the Black Hand, with ties to the Serbian government, saw Franz Ferdinand's visit as an opportunity to strike a blow against the Austro-Hungarian Empire. They plotted to assassinate the Archduke. One of the assassins was a 19-year-old Serbian nationalist named Gavrilo Princip. Princip was a young man consumed by a fervent hatred for the Austro-Hungarian Empire. He believed that the assassination of Franz Ferdinand would be a heroic act, a spark that would ignite a revolution and lead to the creation of a greater Serbia. On the morning of June 28, 1914, Franz Ferdinand and Sophie's motorcade made its way through the crowded streets of Sarajevo. The atmosphere was tense, but the initial attempt on the Archduke's life failed when a bomb thrown at his car bounced off and exploded under the carriage behind, injuring several people. Undeterred, Franz Ferdinand insisted on visiting those injured in the bombing. However, on the way to the hospital, the driver of the Archduke's car took a wrong turn, stalling the vehicle in front of Gavrilo Princip. Seizing the opportunity, Princip stepped forward and fired 2 shots. One bullet struck Sophie in the abdomen, the other hit Franz Ferdinand in the neck. Both died within minutes. The assassination of Franz Ferdinand and Sophie sent shockwaves through Europe. Austria-Hungary, outraged by the assassination of its heir apparent, blamed Serbia for the attack and issued an ultimatum demanding satisfaction. Serbia's response, although conciliatory, did not meet all of Austria-Hungary's demands. The assassination set in motion a complex web of alliances and diplomatic failures that ultimately led to the outbreak of World War I. Austria-Hungary, backed by Germany, declared war on Serbia on July 28, 1914. Russia, bound by treaty to protect Serbia, mobilized its troops. Germany, fearing a two-front war, declared war on Russia and its ally France. Great Britain, obligated to defend Belgium's neutrality, declared war on Germany on August 4, 1914. Within a week, all of the great powers of Europe were at war. The assassination of Franz Ferdinand, once a regional crisis, had escalated into a global conflict. The world watched in horror as Europe descended into war. The conflict, which many believed would be over in a matter of months, dragged on for 4 long years. Millions of soldiers and civilians perished in the trenches of Europe. The map of Europe was redrawn, the old order was shattered. The assassination of Franz Ferdinand had profound and far-reaching consequences. It led to the outbreak of World War I, a conflict that reshaped the political and social landscape of the 20th century. The war led to the collapse of empires, the rise of new ideologies, and the deaths of millions. The assassination also had a profound impact on the way we view history. It is often cited as an example of how a single event can have unintended and catastrophic consequences. It serves as a reminder of the fragility of peace and the importance of diplomacy.
Benito Mussolini, Il Duce, the swaggering embodiment of fascism, imagined himself leading Italy to a new Roman Empire. He envisioned a nation reborn under his iron rule, a modern-day Caesar guiding his people to glory. But as World War II raged on, his grand vision crumbled, and so did his grip on power. The once mighty leader found his empire disintegrating before his eyes, with each defeat on the battlefield echoing the collapse of his authority. By 1943, with Italy facing devastating losses and the Allies advancing, even his own party turned against him. The fascist Grand Council, once his loyal supporters, voted to remove him from power, signaling the beginning of the end for Mussolini. He was stripped of his authority, arrested, and imprisoned, a far cry from the all-powerful dictator he once was. The man who had once commanded fear and respect was now a prisoner, his dreams of a new Roman Empire shattered.
7 years ago, I was an interesting person. Now I am a corpse. These words, spoken by Mussolini himself, would soon become a haunting reality.
His words proved prophetic, a grim foreshadowing of his fate. In April 1945, as the war in Europe neared its end, Mussolini attempted to flee to Switzerland with his mistress, Clara Petacci. Desperation marked their every move as they sought to escape the inevitable retribution. Disguised and desperate, they were captured by Italian communist partisans. Their attempts to evade capture were futile, and their fate, it seemed, was sealed. The once dominant dictator and his loyal companion were now at the mercy of their captors. On April 28, 1945, Mussolini and Petacci were executed by firing squad. The end came swiftly and without ceremony, a stark contrast to the grandiose life Mussolini had envisioned for himself. Their bodies, along with those of other captured fascist officials, were transported to Milan, a city that had once trembled before Mussolini's regime. Now, it would bear witness to the final chapter of his story. And here's where the story takes a particularly gruesome turn. The aftermath of their execution would be as brutal as their fall from power. The bodies were dumped in Milan's Piazzale Loreto, a public square that had witnessed the brutal execution of Italian partisans just a year earlier. The symbolism was stark, a visceral demonstration of the shifting tides of power. The square, once a place of fear, now became a stage for retribution. The scene that unfolded was chaotic and vengeful. A massive crowd gathered, hurling insults and debris at the corpses, venting their pent-up anger and frustration. The people, once oppressed, now had their moment of defiance. People spat on Mussolini's lifeless face, a final act of defiance against the man who had ruled with an iron fist. The dictator who had once commanded fear was now a symbol of scorn. Photographs of Mussolini's disfigured and desecrated body, hanging upside down alongside Petacci, were circulated widely, becoming powerful symbols of the fall of fascism and the end of an era. These images served as a grim reminder of the consequences of absolute power. The man who had styled himself as a Caesar met an end that was both brutal and ignominious. His fall from grace was complete, a cautionary tale of hubris and the inevitable downfall of tyrants. News of Mussolini's execution and the gruesome display of his corpse in Milan reached Hitler in the bunker. The fate of his Italian ally served as a grim reminder of what awaited him if he were captured.
It was a chilling reminder of the fate that often awaited deposed dictators, a fate I was determined to avoid.
The city of Berlin, once a symbol of Nazi power, was now a battlefield, its streets echoing with the sounds of artillery and gunfire. Hitler, holed up in the subterranean depths of the Führer bunker, his world shrinking to the confines of concrete and despair, knew the end was near. The bunker, designed as a refuge, had become a tomb, a place where the last vestiges of the Third Reich would wither away. He married his longtime mistress, Eva Braun, in a brief ceremony in the bunker, a final act of defiance against the encroaching chaos. It was a strange, almost surreal moment, a wedding in the midst of destruction. Hitler ordered his staff to gather gasoline, determined that his body would be burned, denying his enemies the satisfaction of capturing him, dead or alive. This was his last command, a final attempt to control his fate. He even had cyanide capsules tested on his dog, Blondie, a chilling foreshadowing of what was to come. The loyalty of his canine companion was repaid with death, a stark symbol of the loyalty he demanded from his followers. On April 30th, 1945, with the sounds of Soviet artillery fire echoing through the shattered city above, Hitler and Braun retreated to his private study in the bunker. The atmosphere was tense, filled with the weight of impending doom. They were alone, their final moments shrouded in secrecy. The world outside continued to crumble, but in that room, time seemed to stand still. What exactly transpired in that room remains a subject of historical debate. Some say there were final words exchanged. Others believe it was a silent, grim acceptance of their fate. Accounts from those present in the bunker vary, but the consensus is that Braun swallowed a cyanide capsule, while Hitler shot himself in the head. It was a coordinated act, a mutual decision to escape the horrors that awaited them. Their bodies were carried outside to the Chancellery Garden, doused in gasoline, and set alight, a pyre amidst the ruins of a shattered city. The flames rose high, consuming the last physical remnants of the man who had brought so much suffering to the world. The flames, fueled by the remnants of Hitler's regime, consumed the bodies, turning them to ash. It was a symbolic end, the fire purging the last traces of his existence. The discovery of Hitler's charred remains by Soviet troops confirmed his fate. The dictator was dead, his reign of terror finally over. The most hated man in the world, the dictator who had unleashed unimaginable horrors, was gone. His death marked the end of an era, a moment of relief for a world that had suffered under his tyranny. His suicide in the bunker, a final act of self-destruction, marked the definitive end of the Third Reich and brought the curtain down on one of the darkest chapters in human history. The world could begin to heal, but the scars of his actions would remain forever etched in history. Joseph Stalin, the man of steel, ruled the Soviet Union with an iron fist for decades. His reign was marked by a relentless pursuit of power and control, leaving an indelible mark on the history of the 20th century. His name became synonymous with paranoia, brutality, and a staggering death toll. Under his rule, the Soviet Union became a land of fear and repression, where dissent was met with swift and often lethal punishment. Millions perished under his regime, victims of forced labor, executions, and engineered famines. The Gulag system, a network of forced labor camps, swallowed countless lives, while purges eliminated perceived enemies within the party and the military. Stalin's control over the Soviet Union was absolute, his cult of personality pervasive. Propaganda glorified him as the father of the nation, and his image was omnipresent, from statues in public squares to portraits in every home. Yet, even dictators are mortal, and in the winter of 1953, Stalin's health began to deteriorate. The once formidable leader, who had seemed invincible, was now showing signs of frailty. On the night of February 28, 1953, Stalin hosted a late-night dinner with several of his inner circle. These gatherings were a mix of camaraderie and tension, where loyalty was tested and alliances were scrutinized. They watched a film, a typical Stalinist gathering, fueled by paranoia and power plays. The atmosphere was thick with suspicion, as everyone knew that a single misstep could mean their downfall. After the guests departed, Stalin retired to his private quarters, never to be seen alive again by those outside his inner circle. The silence that followed was heavy with foreboding. Hours passed, and Stalin's guards, accustomed to his erratic schedule and fearing his wrath, dared not disturb him. They knew that any intrusion could result in severe punishment. It wasn't until late the following evening that they finally entered his room, finding the dictator lying on the floor, soaked in his own urine. The scene was a stark contrast to the image of power he had cultivated. Stalin had suffered a massive stroke, his body paralyzed. The man who had once commanded an empire was now rendered helpless. A stopped watch nearby suggested he had collapsed many hours earlier. Time, which he had once manipulated to his advantage, had now betrayed him. The man who had once held the lives of millions in his hands was now helpless, his own mortality staring him in the face. The power he had wielded so ruthlessly was now meaningless. Doctors were summoned, but there was little they could do. The stroke had done irreparable damage, and the medical knowledge of the time was insufficient to save him. Stalin lingered for several days. His breathing labored, his face contorted in what his daughter, Svetlana, described as a horrible look, either mad or angry and full of fear of death. The once formidable leader was now a shadow of his former self.
A horrible look, either mad or angry and full of fear of death. This was the final image of a man who had instilled fear in so many.
On March 5, 1953, Joseph Stalin died. The news of his death was met with a mixture of shock, relief, and uncertainty. The news sent shockwaves through the Soviet Union and the world. People were unsure of what the future would hold without the man who had dominated their lives for so long. The seemingly invincible dictator, the architect of so much suffering, was gone. His death marked the end of an era of unprecedented terror and control. His death, shrouded in secrecy and fear, was as enigmatic as his life. The circumstances surrounding his final moments were the subject of much speculation and rumor. Some whispered of foul play, of poison administered by rivals within the Kremlin. The power struggles that had defined his reign did not end with his death. Others saw it as a fitting end, the tyrant struck down by the very forces he had unleashed. The fear and paranoia that he had sown had come full circle. Whatever the truth, Stalin's death marked the end of an era. The Soviet Union and the world would never be the same.
A light extinguished the assassination of Olof Palme, Sweden, a beacon of peace and neutrality, known for its picturesque landscapes, progressive policies, and a society that valued equality and justice. A country that prided itself on its social harmony and democratic values. The Swedish model was admired worldwide, a testament to the nation's commitment to welfare and human rights. Yet, on a cold February night in 1986, this tranquility was shattered. The streets of Stockholm, usually so serene, became the backdrop for a tragedy that would leave an indelible mark on the nation. Olof Palme, the Prime Minister of Sweden, lay dead on a Stockholm street, shot in the back. The news spread like wildfire, leaving the citizens in a state of shock and disbelief. His murder sent shockwaves across the nation and the world. The headlines screamed of the unthinkable, and the people mourned the loss of a leader who had been a symbol of hope and progress. It remains one of the most baffling, unsolved political assassinations of the 20th century. Despite numerous investigations and countless theories, the truth remains elusive. Palme's assassination was more than just the murder of a political leader. It was a blow to the ideals he stood for, a challenge to the very essence of Swedish democracy and social justice. It was an attack on the very fabric of Swedish society. The nation mourned collectively, with flags at half-mast and public gatherings to honor the fallen leader. This is the story of that night, a night that changed Sweden forever, casting a long shadow over its history. It is a story of political intrigue, of a flawed investigation, and of a nation forever changed. The police and detectives worked tirelessly, but the investigation was marred by missteps and controversies. Most importantly, it is a story that remains unfinished, a puzzle with missing pieces, a mystery still yearning for a solution. The quest for justice continues, as the memory of Olof Palme endures in the hearts of the Swedish people. Olof Palme's journey from a privileged upbringing to becoming a beacon of hope for the underprivileged is a story of dedication and transformation. Olof Palme was a child of privilege, born into an upper-class family in Stockholm. Despite his affluent background, he was deeply influenced by the social injustices he witnessed around him. However, he dedicated his life to fighting for the underprivileged. His early experiences shaped his worldview, driving him to advocate for those who lacked a voice in society. He rose through the ranks of the Swedish Social Democratic Party, becoming a symbol of progressive values and social justice. His commitment to these ideals earned him the respect and admiration of many. Palm's charisma and sharp intellect propelled him to the forefront of Swedish politics. His ability to connect with people from all walks of life made him a formidable leader. He served as prime minister twice, first from 1969 to 1976, and again from 1982 until his death. During his tenure, he implemented numerous reforms aimed at reducing inequality and promoting social welfare. He was a powerful orator, captivating audiences with his passionate speeches on social equality, nuclear disarmament, and international solidarity. His words resonated not just in Sweden but across the globe, inspiring movements for change and justice. Palm's influence extended beyond national borders. He was a staunch advocate for peace and human rights, often speaking out against oppressive regimes and advocating for global cooperation. His legacy continues to inspire those who fight for a fairer, more just world. As Prime Minister, Palm implemented sweeping social reforms that transformed Sweden into the welfare state it is known for today. He expanded healthcare, education, and social security, creating a safety net for all citizens. His policies aimed to reduce inequality and promote social mobility. Palm believed in the power of government to improve people's lives. He championed workers' rights, gender equality, and environmental protection. His reforms were not without their critics, however. Some viewed his policies as overly idealistic and fiscally irresponsible. Beyond Sweden's borders, Palm was a vocal critic of injustice and oppression. He condemned the Vietnam War, apartheid in South Africa, and human rights abuses around the world. He used Sweden's neutrality as a platform to mediate conflicts and promote peace. Palm's outspokenness on the international stage made him both admired and reviled. His criticism of the United States in particular earned him enemies in powerful places. Some believed he was too quick to criticize the West while turning a blind eye to the flaws of communist regimes. A cold night in Stockholm, the assassination unfolds. On the evening of February 28, 1986, Olof Palme and his wife Lisbeth decided to walk home from a movie theater in central Stockholm. They had spent a pleasant evening watching a film, enjoying a rare moment of leisure away from the pressures of political life. They had dismissed their security detail for the night, wanting to enjoy a moment of normalcy. This decision, made in the spirit of simplicity and freedom, would soon prove to be tragically fateful. As they walked along the quiet, snow-dusted street, a lone gunman emerged from the shadows. He fired 2 shots, shattering the peaceful night. One bullet struck Palm in the back, fatally wounding him. The sudden violence was shocking, a stark contrast to the serene surroundings. The other grazed Lisbeth's shoulder, causing her to cry out in pain and horror. She turned to see her husband collapse to the ground. The assailant then disappeared into the night, leaving Sweden in shock and disbelief. The nation mourned the loss of its leader, and questions about the motive and identity of the killer began to swirl. The assassination of Olof Palme remains one of the most significant and tragic events in Swedish history, a night that changed the country forever. The initial response to the assassination was chaotic. Crucial evidence was mishandled or overlooked. Witnesses contradicted each other. The investigation quickly became bogged down in a mire of false leads and dead ends. The lack of a clear motive and the brazen nature of the crime only deepened the mystery. Was it the work of a lone gunman or a larger conspiracy? Was Palme targeted for his domestic policies or his international stance? The questions far outnumbered the answers. Over the years, numerous theories emerged, pointing fingers at various groups and individuals. The PKK, a Kurdish separatist group, was suspected due to Palme's criticism of their activities. Right-wing extremists were also considered, angered by his left-leaning policies. One man, Christer Pettersson, was even convicted of the murder in 1989, only to be acquitted on appeal due to lack of evidence. The case went cold, leaving a cloud of suspicion hanging over Sweden. In 2020, over 3 decades after the assassination, Swedish authorities made a startling announcement. They named Stig Engström, a graphic designer who worked near the crime scene, as the likely assassin. Engström, who had died in 2000, had been dismissed as an unreliable witness during the initial investigation. However, a re-examination of the evidence, including witness testimonies and Engström's own contradictory statements, led investigators to conclude that he was the most likely perpetrator. The announcement reignited public interest in the case, but also sparked controversy. Palme's assassination had a profound impact on Swedish society. The country's sense of security was shaken to its core. The open and trusting nature of Swedish society began to erode. Security measures were heightened, and public trust in institutions waned. The assassination also exposed deep political divisions within Sweden. The far right saw an opportunity to exploit the tragedy for their own gain, while the left grappled with the loss of their iconic leader. Despite the 2020 announcement, the case remains officially closed. Without a confession or definitive evidence, doubts linger in the minds of many. Some believe Engström was a scapegoat, a convenient way to close the case without truly solving it. The unresolved nature of the assassination continues to haunt Sweden. It serves as a constant reminder of the fragility of democracy and the enduring power of unanswered questions. Olof Palme's legacy is complex and multifaceted. He was a champion of social justice, a tireless advocate for peace, and a polarizing figure who made both ardent supporters and bitter enemies. His assassination robbed the world of a unique and influential voice. While the mystery surrounding his death may never be fully solved, Palme's commitment to his ideals continues to inspire people around the world. He remains a symbol of the enduring struggle for a more just and equitable world. We will journey back in time to ancient Egypt, where pharaohs ruled with absolute power, and explore the evidence surrounding the deaths of Pharaoh Teti, Amenemhat I, and Ramesses III. We will then venture into the heart of the Persian Empire, where the Achaemenid dynasty faced internal strife and the ever-present threat of assassination. Finally, we will turn our attention to the pages of the Old Testament, where stories of kings slain by their own people offer a stark reminder of the fragility of power. Prepare yourself, for the journey ahead is fraught with danger, intrigue, and the enduring mystery of ancient assassinations. Our journey begins in ancient Egypt, a land of pharaohs and pyramids, where the sands of time have preserved stories of grandeur and mystery. The Nile River, a lifeline that nurtured a civilization for millennia, flows serenely through the heart of this ancient land, bringing life to its people and prosperity to its kingdoms. It was during the Old Kingdom period, a time marked by prosperity, architectural marvels, and cultural achievements, that we encounter the first whispers of a royal assassination. Pharaoh Teti, the first ruler of the 6th dynasty, ascended to the throne in approximately 2345 BC, bringing with him hopes of continued stability and growth. His reign, however, would be cut tragically short, leaving behind a legacy shrouded in mystery and intrigue. While the exact circumstances of Teti's death remain shrouded in mystery, there are tantalizing clues that hint at foul play, suggesting that his demise was not a natural one. Ancient texts refer to a rebellion that occurred during Teti's reign, suggesting that he may have faced opposition from within his own court, a court that was supposed to be loyal and protective. Furthermore, Teti's pyramid, located in Saqqara, was found to be unusually small and hastily constructed, a possible indication of an unexpected and untimely demise, raising questions about the circumstances surrounding his death. Could Teti have been the victim of a palace coup, assassinated by ambitious rivals eager to seize power? The possibility looms large, casting a shadow over the final days of his reign. The evidence, while circumstantial, is compelling. The fragments of history we have suggest a narrative of betrayal and ambition. The whispers of Teti's assassination serve as a stark reminder that even in the most powerful of kingdoms, danger lurked in the shadows, and no one, not even a pharaoh, was immune to the perils of power. The assassination of a pharaoh sent shockwaves through Egyptian society, a society that revered its rulers as divine intermediaries between the gods and the people. It was a crime against not only the ruler but also against the gods themselves, an act that threatened the very fabric of the divine order. The search for Teti's killer or killers would have been swift and brutal, a testament to the importance of maintaining order and stability in the land of the pharaohs. The stakes were high, and the consequences of such a crime were severe, reflecting the gravity of the situation. As we delve deeper into the annals of history, the story of Teti's assassination reminds us of the fragile nature of power and the ever-present threat of betrayal, a theme that resonates through the ages. The Nile continues to flow, a silent witness to the rise and fall of dynasties, carrying with it the secrets of a civilization that once thrived along its banks. And so, the first whispers of assassination in ancient Egypt echo through time, a testament to the enduring legacy of a land where history and mystery are forever intertwined. The assassination of Pharaoh Teti cast a long shadow over the history of ancient Egypt. His untimely death marked the beginning of a period of uncertainty and turmoil, shaking the very foundations of the Old Kingdom. The echoes of this tragic event reverberated through the centuries, serving as a grim reminder of the perils that awaited those who dared to rule. Centuries later, another pharaoh would meet a similar fate, his death forever etched in the annals of history. This time, it was Amenemhat I, the founder of the 12th dynasty, who would fall victim to the treacherous schemes of those closest to him. His assassination would leave an indelible mark on the course of Egyptian history, altering the trajectory of the nation. Amenemhat I, the founder of the 12th dynasty, ruled Egypt during a time of renewed prosperity and stability. His reign was marked by significant achievements, including the establishment of a strong central government and the expansion of Egypt's borders. Under his leadership, the nation flourished, and the people enjoyed a period of relative peace and prosperity. However, his reign, like that of Teti before him, would end in violence. Despite his efforts to maintain order and stability, Amenemhat I could not escape the fate that had befallen so many rulers before him. The seeds of betrayal were sown within his own palace, and the conspirators bided their time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. What makes Amenemhat I's assassination particularly intriguing is the existence of a remarkable document known as the Instructions of Amenemhat. This ancient text, purportedly written by the dying king himself, offers a chilling account of the assassination attempt and serves as a warning to his son and heir, Senusret I. The vivid descriptions in the text paint a haunting picture of the chaos and violence that erupted within the palace walls, a stark contrast to the grandeur and opulence that once defined it. He writes of the conspirators who plotted evil in their hearts and the terror that gripped him as he fought for his life. The Instructions of Amenemhat serve as a poignant reminder of the ever-present danger faced by rulers, even within the supposed safety of their own courts. The text underscores the fragility of power and the constant threat of treachery that loomed over the heads of those who held the throne. The text is a poignant reminder of the ever-present danger faced by rulers, even within the supposed safety of their own courts. It serves as a testament to the precarious nature of power and the lengths to which individuals would go to seize it. The Instructions of Amenemhat not only provide a historical account of a tragic event, but also offer timeless lessons on the nature of leadership and the importance of vigilance. Amenemhat I's assassination had a profound impact on his son Senusret I. The young pharaoh was deeply affected by his father's tragic fate, and it shaped his approach to leadership. Determined to avenge his father's death and secure his own grip on power, Senusret launched a series of military campaigns to consolidate his rule and quell any potential rebellions. His reign was marked by a relentless pursuit of stability and security, driven by the lessons he had learned from his father's demise. Determined to avenge his father's death and secure his own grip on power, Senusret launched a series of military campaigns to consolidate his rule and quell any potential rebellions. He understood that the key to maintaining his authority lay in demonstrating strength and decisiveness. Through his military prowess and strategic acumen, Senusret I was able to fortify his position and ensure the continued prosperity of his